The South African government and the ruling African National Congress has reacted sharply to Anglo Platinum's plans to close and sell off some of its operations in South Africa's Platinum Belt region. However, mining expert Peter Leon from Webber Wentzel earlier said the state's reaction was emotional.
The ANC and indeed the government are being very unhelpful about this process because it obviously is a serious issue for the mining industry. It's a serious issue for Anglo-American and Anglo-Platinum, and I think it needs to be approached much more responsibly. And all you've seen so far from the government and indeed from the ruling party is a great deal of rhetoric and emotion. Now, I can understand these are 14,000 jobs which are being lost. That is serious in relation to the overall size of the mining industry and the size of these mining operations. But, you know, I mean, a mining company doesn't retrench labour just for the sake of it. I mean, there are economic factors in play here, and the company went through a one-year review before they did this.
Now, of course, the African National Congress has called the decision cynical and dangerous in the extreme. Now, news just in, the ANC has been meeting with the Chamber of Mines, and to discuss the latest development is Jessie Duarte. She's the Deputy Secretary General of the ruling party, and she now joins us in the studio. Ms. Duarte, thank you so much for joining us here on Beyond Markets. I understand the meeting between yourselves and the Chamber is in fact ongoing. You've been in that meeting, you've kindly stepped out to come and talk to us. Take us through what the immediate issues were that the ruling party had put on the agenda for this meeting.
Thank you very much, Karima. First of all, we expressed to the Chamber that the decision they took was an extremely serious decision, that the fact that they were in the process of a review was well known. It's the application of the decision that has been of real concern to the ANC, and we felt that we needed perhaps to receive a different explanation to the one that we've been getting from the Chamber up to this point. Number one, in 2010, Amplats applied for a new generation mining license. At the time, they presented a 50-year plan, and they were awarded several new licenses, including the Union mine and several of the mines which they are now mothballing. The question that we put to the Chamber was if they could explain to us whether this was a strategy right from the beginning, that they would obtain the licenses, begin some operations, and then long-term begin to close down mines as they watch the price of platinum and the high supply and low demand factor kicking in. And if that explanation is given, perhaps the reaction that we have had would have been, I might agree with Peter Leon, a little bit emotional. However, the explanation we got was something else. We also expressed to the Chamber that our view was that we think that what Amplats is doing is they're in fact pushing for an increase in the price of platinum. So slow down the supply side, and obviously it's high-grade platinum. It also seems to us that they're high-grading, and therefore they might mothball one or two of the shafts, but then sterilize them long-term, so they might never open them again. These are the dangers we see in this decision, and naturally 13,000 of the 14,000 job losses are in the Rustenburg area. And we also did not accept the explanation of a social development program, which is very vague, doesn't spell out what it is. And even in the meeting today, we didn't get a satisfactory answer. However, I want to say what is positive is that the Chamber has agreed that yes, the how part was problematic. They do express the fact that what they did was unavoidable. We accept that. They understand that our bottom line is jobs, and we understood in the meeting that their bottom line is effectively profit. And often those two don't meet each other very well. We've agreed to continue to talk. Our minister will meet with the CEO of Amplats tomorrow and have another conversation. We also thought the cynical part of it is that we know that a decision has been made. And the 60-day period of looking at it is simply going to be malicious compliance. They made a decision, they implemented their decision. There was no real discussion with their partners in the government, and that is true. And we pointed out to the Chamber that their statement yesterday was unfair and incorrect. That the spokesperson tried to imply that the minister did know that 14,000 jobs would be shed. So these are the things we've been discussing, but there's a positive outcome to this as well, in that South Africans understand the seriousness of the nature, and we're willing to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ms. Duarte, the allegations or the questioning of the motives of Anglo Platinum, it's very serious.
Yes,
you are raising essentially, if I'm to understand you correctly, that Anglo Platinum submitted an application for new licenses on a false premise, and that had never intended to remain in South Africa, had never intended to see its plan through, which it had submitted. Now, that of course is an incredibly serious allegation to make. What makes you believe that there is truth to what you are saying? Why are you convinced that a mining company would act in such bad faith?
Well, we think it's the economics of the platinum industry, actually. It's quite clear that platinum hasn't been performing as people had been projecting. I think what we were hoping for was a much more straightforward explanation than the one we got in the public pronouncement made by Anglo. And see, the problem we would face with Amplats at the moment is that going forward, the 45 jobs that they say they're trying to protect, how secure is that? Given that this is 2 years ago.
This is the 45,000 jobs
that they're saying they want to protect. This is 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. And clearly, if they shut down some of their shafts, they slow down the demand, the supply side, and that's straightforward economics. We would have understood that explanation, frankly speaking. But what we cannot accept in the climate that we are in at the moment, as the ANC, is that jobs are going to be lost.
Let me just come in here, Ms. Duarte. The statement of the African National Congress is a very, very strong statement.
Yes, it is.
Talks about the fact that it calls on the minister to call an urgent meeting of the industry with a view to considering the idea of companies who want to mothball shafts to surrender their licenses. And you're calling basically for, these shafts to be put on auction. Are you suggesting that there be punitive action against Amplats?
Well, it's not exactly punitive. We're saying that given the fact that Amplats appear to be struggling to keep these mines open, there have been several players internationally, particularly in our BRICS, group, who've suggested that South Africa is still one of the areas where they believe that mining prospects are very good. In fact, the Chamber of Mines chairperson today said very much the same thing. And so they have an interest in getting a foot into the South African mining market. So we believe that instead of mothballing and sterilizing or treating some shafts as dog shafts, we need to enter into a conversation with Amplats and say, if you're not going to use those mining shafts, would you rescind your licenses and allow us to auction those mines and get new partners in, so that we continue the business of job creation and mining, which is a backbone of our country.